Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're really happy that you've joined us, and we'd love to get to know more about you after the service. If you haven't already stopped by the newcomer table, please do so that we can give you a proper welcome and also add you to our e-list so that we can let you know about all of the different events that we have coming up. We have some announcements this morning. The first is don't forget about our election night Vesper service. That's Tuesday at 7 p.m. here in Channing Hall. That's going to be a shorter contemplative service of readings and music that will bring a little peace into our awareness on what will be a high stakes evening for many. Please bring along your friends. Anyone can attend that. All of our guests are welcome. And we will have a Zoom option for that as well. I think we emailed that out last week. We'll make sure to email that again on Tuesday. There'll be a live stream option. Fellowship night is back. That is Saturday, November 9th at 6 p.m. in the Founders Room. Fellowship night offers playing board games and eating pizza as an excuse to get to know your fellow UU Princeton congregants better. Please bring your favorite board game or card games and be ready to play. The event is free. Pizza will be provided. You can donate to help defray that cost if you like. And if you're inclined, you can bring a salad or a dessert to share potluck style. Your sign up on the Sign Up Genius on our website will let us know how much pizza to order. And there will be future fellowship nights always on the second Saturday of the month. On Sunday, November 10th, that's next month, the Leadership Development and Nominating Committee is offering Conscious Communication, a program to improve leadership and development of communication skills in an interactive workshop designed to allow space for everyone to learn and to practice. The session will be in the Founders Room following the regular service, and it will be led by UU Princeton member Angela Kolva, who looks forward to joining with all of us as we expand our abilities to communicate well, even in difficult conversations. And lastly, on your way out of the service this morning, you'll receive a flyer. This is for our annual food drive to fill the community pantries of Arm in Arm. We will be collecting food next Sunday, the 10th and 17th and the 24th. And then on the 24th, you'll be invited to stay after the service to help sort the goods if you're able to do that. There's a list of things needed and a list of one thing not needed. No cranberry sauce, please. Everybody loves cranberry sauce, but they get a ton of it. So please don't bring cranberry sauce, but bring the other staples listed on your order here. Again, you'll get a flyer on your way out. We're collecting food next Sunday and the 17th and the 24th. And now at this sacred hour, grateful for each and welcoming all, let us be together for a time of peace and balance, for a space of community and acceptance, to remember the good, to seek the true, and to look together toward the love that holds all. Come, let us worship together.
Run your fingers through my soul. For once, just once, feel exactly what I feel. Believe what I believe, perceive what I perceive. Look, experience, examine, and for once, just this once, understand. Oscar Wilde.
Every year, right around this time, our evergreen chapter of the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans leads us in our Notes to the Dead ritual. Pleased to welcome some of our Evergreen Cups members up here to lead us through this ritual.
So if you feel like a pagan, feel free to come up and join us. We like company. And I'm Eva Foster, and I'm going to give you a brief rundown of why we're doing this. I know it says notes to the dead. Some of you may never have sent a note to anyone who was dead. Some of you may never have thought of sending a note to anyone who was dead. Some of you simply may not have been here this time last year and have no idea what we're talking about. So in the pagan community and in a number of other cultures, this is considered to be the time of year when the veil between life and death is the thinnest. And it's a good time to communicate with our ancestors, our friends who have left this planet, family whom we may never have met. You don't have to know the person. It may be someone you wish you had known. It may even be someone you are simply delighted never to have known. It does not need to be a human being. It could be the dog you had when you were 10 years old. So that's the what and the why. And you'll be getting instructions on how we do this in a moment. But we're going now to read from this piece of paper. It's a responsive reading, and Elisa will lead this.
Everybody ready? As a sacred community of the living, we recognize the many kinds of relationships that continue inside of ourselves with those who are now dead. We acknowledge the many ways in which our experiences of seeing death and being apart continue to affect our lives in the present. Those of the dead with whom we have unfinished business and those of the living who struggle, we embrace in the caring spirit of community. Those who are our beloved dead and those of the living whom we love, we embrace in the caring spirit of community. Those we feel as our estranged dead and those of the living who feel hurt and separation, we embrace in the caring spirit of community. Those we miss with pain and sorrow, and those of the living who mourn, we embrace in the caring spirit of community. Those for whom we feel some guilt, and those of the living who carry regret, we gaze in the caring spirit of community. Those who have taught us something of value, and those of the living who feel their lives enriched by learning, we embrace in the caring spirit of community. For it is by embracing you, our dead, that we honor our own pasts, just as it is in the caring embrace of one another, you the living, that our deepest bonds of community become real.
Okay. So you probably were given a little piece of paper and a little pencil as you came in today. If you didn't get that, would you raise your hand, please? Each person needs to have their own pencil, including young people. Keep your hand up so that the ushers will be able to see you. Go ahead, ushers and everyone. And I want to emphasize, don't use any part of the order of service or any other paper aside from the paper we're passing out, because this is the paper that goes best in the order of service. Other papers have been shown in the past to create a lot of smoke, and we don't like that, especially now with fire restrictions in place. So please only use the pieces of paper that we hand out. And if you have something longer that might not fit on this one little slip of paper, we ask that you do something at home. And what you put on the paper, it might just be a word or a phrase or a squiggle or a picture or anything. Or you could make a face at the paper or kiss the paper or do a gesture at the paper. Or you could speak into the paper, but in a whisper, please. We don't want anyone else living to know what's in your message. And as Eva said, what you write could be to someone you knew personally or someone you didn't know personally. Could be a famous person who's dead. What she didn't say was that if you have done this before and you have someone you've written to before that you'd like to write to again, it's okay to, in a manner of speaking, recycle. And your note doesn't have to be perfect or even finished, just enough so that whoever it is will know what you mean. It's your message, so you get to say what's in it. And it doesn't even matter if you don't have anything nice to say. Whatever feeling or combination of feelings you have is okay to express here. Again, no one living except you will ever see what's in the message, so you're in charge here. And you'll have a few minutes to write your note. And while the music is playing, and then we will invite you row by row. I think Elisa is going to direct you. Yes, Elisa is going to direct you. And then you'll drop it into the fire so that it'll go from this world to the next or wherever you intend. Or you may choose to take your note home and do something more private with it. You could even put it in the garbage or the recycling or the compost, whatever you need to do with it. And for those of you who are really young, we ask you to come up to the cauldron with an adult or have one of us help you. And for those of you who would, for whatever reason, rather not come up to the front, but still want your message in the fire, we invite you to send your message up with someone else. It'll still go where it's meant to go. And as you come forward, please do so through the center aisles and leave through the side aisles. And now I think I've covered everything, so it's time for a few minutes of music. Go ahead, Sue.
Things. This is what appears at the bottom of your litany sheet as the unison affirmation. Let us read this together. By swift or by slow, these messages go from living to the dead. Their meaning has fled. In smoke or in light, they pass from our sight. By each its own speed, they go as they need. So mote it be. After the service, the cauldron will be carried outside to place the ashes near the memorial garden.
Usually when it comes to writing my reflections, I consider the topic for the week and I have a moment of inspiration. Something that's happened in my life clicks with the message that's to be conveyed in the service, and I go from there. But for some reason, nothing was coming to me this time around until yesterday. That's when I had two separate encounters, one with Yellow Truck Guy and one with Nassau Street Sinatra Guy. I don't know if any of you saw Nassau Street Sinatra Guy yesterday, but it was something. I was driving to work, going a few miles over the speed limit, when out of nowhere, someone in a fully loaded bright yellow pickup truck came barreling down on me. Obviously, a mere few miles over the speed limit wasn't going to cut it for him because he started honking and swerving, trying to overtake me on what was a relatively small two-lane back road. Not sure what to do, I just kept going. There was a passing lane a little way ahead, so I took a deep breath and then quickly assumed the absolute worst about him. In my estimation, the absolute worst is thinking he's someone who must be voting for the person I'm not voting for president. I swore him up and down and was relieved when I got to the passing lane and he zoomed around me. Then there was Nassau Street Sinatra Guy. I was in my car again, this time heading to a recording session at the university. I was near the corner of Nassau and Witherspoon, and I heard someone delivering a pretty decent rendition of Come Fly With Me. I was thoroughly amused by this unabashed crooning in the middle of a busy street. Once I was upon him, though, I realized he was stumping for the person I'm not voting for president, and there I was, twice in one day, thinking the absolute worst about someone. In both instances, I at first felt self-righteous and then ashamed of myself for automatically thinking the worst when I should have maybe given these people the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to do when someone's barreling down on you and tailgating you, but the person in the truck might have been trying to get to a hospital to say goodbye to someone who was dying or to be with his wife who was in labor. I remember when my sister was in her last days of battling liver cancer, I'm positive I said and did the wrong thing on many occasions because my mind was somewhere else, and I'm sure I was shown some kindnesses in spite of it. As for Sinatra Guy, he's certainly allowed to have his own opinions, and he wasn't harming anyone. Admittedly, it's extremely difficult for me to put aside my own beliefs and values and be sincerely interested in listening to someone who feels exactly the opposite of me. I have a tendency to surround myself in little safe bubbles of like-minded people. I live in Princeton, or avoid possibly conflict-ridden situations or events. Sometimes, though, I break out of my comfort zone and interact with someone that has the potential to rub me the wrong way. If nothing else, this makes me feel better about myself for trying to be open-minded, and it often makes for lively conversation. Maybe next time I'll stop and talk to Sinatra Guy, try to understand him a bit better, try to understand him at all, and hope he would want to understand me as well. Or share a word of kindness or hope with someone like Truck Guy in the event he is actually having a really crappy day. Who knows? Maybe these kinds of gestures, if done by me and others, will help make the world a better place, or at least make my world a better place, even if just for a moment.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Not this past fellowship auction, but I think the one before. Dunbar and I bid on Reverend Bill's sermon. And, we thought, as typical of us, we thought it would be fun and really interesting, but we dragged our feet. And to be honest about it, when we bid on it, we hadn't even discussed what topic it might be. And we really had no idea. And then a couple months ago, maybe within the last 50 days of this election, Bill contacted us about it and was suggesting a date, saying it's about time. And we got talking. My topics were a little different from Dunbar's. Dunbar was raised Unitarian. I married into this. I have a lot of questions about the afterlife and spirituality, and Dunbar not so much as a humanist. I'm not sure what to call you. But so anyway, the one thing that we did come down on, especially because this, the date today was suggested, we thought, well, there's definitely a lot to talk about this. And as I mentioned, I married into this UU stuff. One of the things that really spoke to me right away, 35 years ago, something like that, were the then 7 UU principles and now 8. And sorry, I haven't really quite internalized yet the new core values. They're the same things, but different words. But all along, I have fully believed that I was a strong proponent, especially of principle number 1, the inherent dignity and worth of everyone. And also, of course, number 5, everybody deserves a vote. I mean, I don't know if Dunbar even knows this, but back in high school, I strangely was the recipient of a patriotism award because I was encouraging, people to vote. So here we are on another brink of big change, or what feels like it. And I'm having a really hard time admitting to myself, but maybe other people are as well, that all those people who might have different opinions actually do deserve a vote. I think that everybody should try to educate themselves and learn as much as possible about issues, especially these ones that are shaping our future. But then when I realized that, I started thinking, well, maybe not everybody deserves a vote. That puts me in kind of the same boat as the proponents of the Dark Enlightenment, who are saying that democracy is a failed experiment. And I can't buy that either. So I really am trying to understand what leads people to do things different than what I am thinking of. And I loved Courtney's examples today. And I really believe that it's a huge part of honoring the inherent dignity and worth of everyone is trying to understand each other. But let's just say I didn't realize that there was such a thing as Unitarian guilt. But these days, I feel like I'm carrying around a whole lot of it because I'm trying to uphold all of these principles at once. And it's just, they're all in conflict in my mind. But anyway, this isn't really intended to be an auction promotion, but one of the best parts was having lunch with Reverend Bill and talking about different things and all different kinds of things that we were weaving into the conversation and trying to decide on this. So with that, I'd like to just turn it over to Bill. And that was, Dunbar, do you have more to add?
Just one word, vote.
Thank you so much, Louise and Dunbar. I didn't marry into the faith, but I did marry the person who introduced me to the faith. So we have that in common for sure. Thank you for the very rich topic too. The working title for the sermon, I didn't go with this because it's going to be on the newsletter and all that, but the title was Please Vote, but Not Like That. That was how I was going to do it. Or only like this. The poet Jane Hirschfield wrote, "Today my hope is vertical. Tomorrow it will be horizontal. The next day, cloudy. My hope is like a Greek myth, exchanging skin for bark, bark for scales, scales for the hollow bones of a bird." She writes of inconstant hope, the shape-shifting kind, the kind that may underscore a quiet interlude only to thunder later in a gospel refrain. An audacious hope, sure, but also sometimes an unassuming one, which is its own kind of beautiful. Sometimes a natural hope, sometimes a rehearsed one. A hope for more than all seasons, a hope for each day, for each moment of each day, to be realized or clung to as the tides and temperatures shift. I have found hope recently in high school marching band competitions. There's a particular flutist in my care. And I went to support her at first, then quickly to support the team, then eventually to support all the teams. Make no mistake, I want hers to win. But more than that, each outing is a festival of music and talented kids who've chosen to work very hard at a craft. They've learned, been taught discipline and teamwork by adults devoted to their care, and they're observed by hundreds of other adults similarly devoted to the common good of common kids. They play and march. We eat and clap. All feels right. And I found hope recently at flag football games. There's a particular player in my care. He blitzes like a 1970s steel curtain linebacker, except that he often smiles as he does it. Steelers usually don't smile in the game, but his team is the Buffalo Bills this year, so perhaps that's allowed up there. They play and pull flags. We stand and cheer, encouraging ours and everyone's players. When mine caught a pass to score, I heard from behind me off my right shoulder an adult voice, "Good catch, John." When I watched a teammate rush the quarterback and obstruct his pass, I said aloud, "Nice defense, Carly." She smiled and ran back to the huddle, and all felt right. And I found hope recently after a youth theater rehearsal. There's a particular thespian in my care. And picking her up after a rehearsal placed me among others picking up their young artists. The kids were energetic and excited, the adults eager to know how things went. Many of us crammed into a space far too small while they rushed around getting their things and we tried not to get in the way. Mine was at first more excited about the vending machine malfunctioning, which gave her an extra bag of Swedish fish. But once that thrill abated, I learned that the rehearsal was fun. They learned blocking and singing, and that the grown-ups were friendly and patient and enthusiastic, and for a moment, all felt right. All does not feel right when I read the news, however, which I do, but not with any sense of joy or pleasure these days. I do not watch the news at all, except for when something major happens. I watched on January 6th. I watched on October 7th. I watched more recently some of the hurricane coverage. I'm sure I've watched more, but I tend to open the app for my preferred paper to read the news rather than watch it. I can pace myself through the story that way, and I can gauge my own reactions more honestly and sensibly without a voice urging my outrage. I try to stay away from punditry and stick with reporting, but those lines are blurred so often that I can find it impossible to tell the difference sometimes. Common is the sense that I'm being led to react, and therein lies the profit, not of my awareness or edification, but of a billionaire's bottom line. I don't mind being sold things, but I'd rather not buy outrage, and digital print lets me feel at least like I'm controlling a little bit more of what I'm buying, but even then, all seldom feels right. But the hope, the joy, the pleasure that I feel in the presence of my kids when they are in the presence of other kids being led by adults who are not me, but who care deeply about them, all lifts me from the fear and anxiety of the world today. It's nothing remarkable, really, just good people being good people, as most people are and most people behave. It's good neighbors being good neighbors, standing in the fresh air, making small talk about the weather and the leaves and how kids grow like weeds. It's holding the door open for the person behind you, then handing the sugar container to the person getting their coffee next to you, then saying good morning to the person at the register, then letting the person in the car next to you back out first because it looks like they're in a hurry. It's the simple kindnesses and daily decencies that we exhibit every day, countless times, to neighbor and stranger that make manifest the basic goodness in each and all of us. They're small reminders to ourselves and one another of civility, brief acknowledgments that others are here and that we see them, and that should we have the chance to grace one another with simple goodness, it is in our collective soul to do so. We will always be good to one another, but we won't always be good to one another, but we will be as often as we can. This sense is the foundation of modern Unitarian Universalism, this sense that people are basically good and can operate out of that goodness in ways that bless one another in the world. It's reflected in our former principles in the language of inherent worth and dignity. Before that language was adopted, way before that language was adopted, this foundation was expressed in theistic terms. We were good because God is good, and from good flows the good, although we can and do mess that up sometimes. As our theology became more diverse, that language became more open, still theistic for some, but collectively less defined in those terms. But that sense of basic goodness, worth, and dignity expressed often academically or poetically stayed true and remains there in our denomination's new value statements, which affirm that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. This claim comes from life. Our values come from our lives. In our faith, they are not handed down from on high. They are written by us. We debate them, argue them, revise and revise and revise them again. They are derived from the collected and discussed thoughts and experiences of the people of faith gathered to deepen and enliven that faith, gathered to serve and bless the world in the name of that faith. Our theology comes from our lives, from our experiences, from what we've learned and learned anew, from our relationships, from an inner sense of right and wrong and public expressions of justice and compassion. They're in many holy books, but not of a particular one. They're in many hymns, but not contained in any one stanza. They can be prayed, but they absolutely are lived. They must be lived. Our values come from our lives. Our theology is a living one, born in relationship with the holy, with one another, and with the timeless web of creation. And these values are bigger than all that distinguishes us from one another. That we think, vote, and act differently does not diminish the claim that all are basically good, that all have worth, and for that matter, that all should be free, which, along with the idea that good flows from the good, is an elemental expression of our faith. All should be free, and that which is not free only directs us to become agents of freedom in the world. This freedom is why we're creedal, why we're not creedal but covenantal. We freely come together to serve and bless one another in the world in alignment with our values. This freedom fosters our spiritual diversity and encourages our theological creativity, for we are not bound by what has been, nor are we confined to what others proclaim. We are free to build together this faith that blesses far and wide. Now, claims about freedom do sometimes fuel the hyper-individualism that frays the fabric of the common good, the me, myself, and I sense that makes collective work in any area more difficult. This happens when we confuse freedom with entitlement, which is a marketplace claim. The freedom we express in our faith is the freedom to come together and build a better world in ways that allow us to be authentic, honest, and true to ourselves. It's not the freedom to serve the self. It's the freedom to serve others in ways that honor the self and bring fullness to life. Freedom is not a release from obligation in our faith. We are obliged to one another and the world. We are, however, free to meet those obligations or to try to in ways that don't make us say that we believe things that we don't. All of this means that when someone votes differently than we do, they still have every ounce of worth and dignity that they would have if they voted the same way that we do. We're not the original holders of that worth and dignity, and we don't dole it out to some but not others. And our belief in freedom insists that we encourage their free expression as much as we cherish ours. Our values must ascend differences of opinion like that. That doesn't mean the differences aren't important, but it does mean that if we stand for freedom, it must be for all. And if we believe that there is within each a spark of the divine, then that spark claims them too, imbuing them with that same goodness that we can easily see in the people that we love. We stand for freedom and claim that all have worth and dignity, and neither of those are dependent on our differences or diversities. But we can and do contest opinions and policies and actions that offend and destroy. With freedom and a belief in the good, we engage the body politic in ways that promote hope, love, justice, and joy. We seek to encourage people to not only vote those values, but to promote them all the time. We work across groups and build new ones to respond to profane politics and build healthier political processes that harness the good and creative and narrow the toxic and reactive. We stand with and for those persecuted by real or would-be powers and engage the public square with faith and hope and a willingness to practice what we preach, affirming our values not only when it's easy and natural, but even when it's difficult, even when every headline is about how divided we are, even when the stakes are very high, especially then. We must engage in alignment with our values that proclaim that everyone is worthy and everyone should be free. And then we engage in that spirit, being advocates aligned with our values and showing their true power, a power that holds all in love, even when, especially when it's hard to do. And when this theology feels too far away from us, it means that we must get closer to our neighbors, and not only the ones who agree with us. It means that we must share in life more broadly, more neighborly, more openly with more people. It means that we must create and join spaces of civic goodness so that our lives can flow together even for just a few moments, even for just a few times each month. And I'm not saying that we should turn those groups into political groups then. I'm saying join a gaming group and go play games, or a tennis league and go play tennis. If holding others in love seems too far away, then our theology is probably not growing in wide enough relationship. We might be too siloed, or we might be ingesting too much toxic media. We might be too removed from neighbor and stranger to see them caring for their kids, or walking their dogs, or complimenting a teacher. Our values come alive in the messy and wonderful world of relationships, not in op-eds or rants or posts, and not only in the easy relationships with people who agree with us. They come alive with and among others, and therein lies their power to bless far and wide. For they will then know us by our love, and they will remember us for our loving engagement. Our passion, yes, our leanings, of course, all that we know, all that we can articulate, all that we can argue, sure. But love is what will open hearts, maybe not to agreement, but to greater respect and dignity. Love grows in all fields, be they for marching bands or for football games. It grows on stage and in stuffy green rooms full of young excitement and watchful adults. And it grows in the blue hearts and red hearts and purple hearts that love those kids. And it softens every hardened heart at some point in some way. Every heart is softened in love for someone, for some people, for a place or event or opportunity to serve. That love is our greatest connection to one another. It's the center of our faith. It's the original blessing of our lives, and it's the most powerful force on earth. And yes, it is the value that we vote for. That love guides our votes and fuels our hopes. Love will guide my vote on Tuesday. But that's just Tuesday, and that's not enough. As we let love lead us in the broader public square, it will become the revolutionary love for which so many pray and speak. It will become that which claims a healthy and robust common ground, a place of diverse opinion but common commitment, where freedom reigns and the good rises and the beloved community comes a little closer to being real. It'll be a place of less fear and more forgiveness, of open mouths and open minds and faithful dialogues, a place for democracy and dissent and honesty and opportunity for all, a place of welcome and generosity and commitment to the next generation, a place that begins in the heart and then goes person by person, becomes larger and larger, never diminished nor divided, only ever growing stronger and more faithful. May we be those people of love on Tuesday and every day. Amen. At the end of our hour, we extinguish our chalice, knowing that its light stays with us until we gather again. Go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of love and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always and always with everyone else by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.